Okay, welcome to my talk on active career management. Not a large group, we'll see where it goes. The whole idea of this talk really is to run through the presentation that I've generated, that I've created. I'll be using this in conferences over the next year or so. I want to make sure I have things in order, that I have my thoughts out down correctly, and ready to go. Plan to put this out on YouTube later. We'll see how that goes. Um, so let's get started. Okay. This talk, Active Career Management, is a collection of thoughts and ideas and advice. Okay, so this is my information. This is information I've gathered, I've come up with, things that I give out to folks along the way. But the main point of the whole thing is this is advice. You take or leave what works for you. These are not necessarily best practices. Okay. There are certain areas in here when I'll talk about it, you'll be like, that's not me. I don't see myself doing that. But any of these can be taken and used incorrectly. They can be taken and used correctly. They can be taken and used efficiently. Or they can be mangled up pretty badly. And I've seen both cases. I make no guarantees as to whether this will help get a job or not. This is just something for you to take and move forward with. So, some of my history. I had 25 years of teaching computers. The last 13 plus years, I've been working as a front end developer. About 3 years ago, I found the 100 Devs bootcamp and started doing coffee chats. So, at this point, over 700 coffee chats. And a lot of what was discussed was career, was how do I determine the right path? How do I set long-term goals? How do I find the right company? How do I navigate this horrendous market that we're in? My history, I did everything wrong. Okay. I didn't do anything to manage my career. Um, in working with these bootcamp students, I had to learn more about myself. This market's different. Developers have to showcase and advocate for their skills. Most people don't do this on a day-to-day basis. In fact, I was never really good at advocating for myself. People don't understand what they need to do to stand out. The market that we had previously, looking 2, 3 years ago, recruiters were chasing us down. Recruiters were, actively looking. I mean, I had points in time when I get 5, 10 recruiters reaching out on a weekly basis. Now I'm looking at one a week if I'm lucky. I also realized that I have an obligation to myself and to my family to build a strong network. Okay. What we did before didn't work. What I did over the years and doing nothing to manage my career didn't work. Um, I need to know what companies are good companies to me. I need to know who it would be that I'd be contacting if, God forbid, the unexpected happened. And I hadn't done any of that. And in talking with the bootcamp students, I realized that I wasn't doing enough. And I started to look at what they could do differently, what I could do differently. Now, 3 levels to a career: early career, mid career, late career. I'm breaking it down really roughly to have to reach a broad audience. Okay. So in early career, social media, conferences, meetups, LinkedIn and Twitter, use of 100 days of code. The 100 days of code challenge allows you to utilize the algorithm, work with the algorithms. You're posting regularly. The algorithms see that you show up more frequently. Okay. Easier to be found if you're showing up frequently, right? And I do mention LinkedIn and X or Twitter, whatever we want to call it. And I have folks that hey, I've left that platform, and yes, I can see leaving it for the reasons that are out there. I don't want to get into that, but what I want to get into is there is a strong tech community. There is a visibility on that platform, not as a social media platform in and of itself, but as a tool to allow you to be visible to other developers, to program managers, to recruiters and hiring managers and business people that might be looking for somebody. Right job at early career is talking about your long-term goals. How do we set long-term goals? How do we define long-term goals? Setting and defining long-term goals is fairly easy these days. Look for those jobs you want to be in 8 to 10 years, in 6 to 8 years, depending on where you're at in your search. Right company, early career, right company. You need to find a number of companies and look at their values and look at their tech stack. I recommend values because this gives you some way to gauge a good company from a bad. If their values match yours, that's a good thing. I usually will recommend finding 60 companies. This takes time and effort, but it's absolutely worth it, especially at the early level. Connections, early career, you're going to be connecting with fellow students, whether it's boot camp or college. You're going to be connecting with past coworkers, even if they're not in the tech industry. You're connecting with company peers, folks that you work with or have worked with. Now, these levels are pretty much the same. They're the same considerations as you move to mid-career, but your social media, you're still doing conferences. You should still be doing meetups. And what you're doing through social media now is maintaining activity. You're still posting, you're still active, you're still working those details, right? You're starting to have longer, deeper conversations with folks that you're connected with. Right job, you should have goals you should be actively maintaining. When you found those goals, you should be looking at things like the job requirements, because the job requirements are your checklist of what to learn and whether you want to learn it. So, at this level, at the mid-career level, you should be checking those things off, going, yeah, I've learned that and it was exciting, or yeah, I've learned that and that's boring and I really don't want to go that direction. Okay. As we look at right company, you should have your 60 companies you're actively maintaining, so in my case, in later career, I'm looking at companies, but when I see a company doing something that I'm uncomfortable with, that might move the company down the list. If I'm seeing a company doing something that sounds like me, sounds like something that I would like, it's a positive thing, they might move up the list. Um, in addition, with the right company, we got to talk about connections, because now is when you should be able to be a little more integral with the strategic networking along those companies. So when I know who my top or 10 or 20 companies are, I can strategically network with folks within that environment. I'm connecting with peers. I should be connecting now in mid-career with tech leads and having conversations with them about career and things like that. My immediate manager is an important one to be connected with. And past peers from school, maintain those connections. They might be moving to someplace you want to be. Now, late career has a whole different thought process here. If late career is moving to retirement, there's not a lot to do. Okay. But if you're like me, I love to write code. I don't see myself retiring anytime soon. It could be that I'm no longer with the current company I'm at, that I shift focus, or I shift what I want to do. So here we got to think about some things, right? Conferences and meetups become more important because at late career, maybe I'm one of those people speaking at the conferences. Maybe I'm one of those people speaking at the meetups. Um, Here with late career, I talk to folks about cleaning up your network. I go back through my LinkedIn and I can go back 19 years. There are people in there that I haven't talked to in almost 2 decades. There are people in there that I'm not sure how I even got connected to them. Okay. Right job. At this point, you should have met your long-term goals. You're in the right place. You know what it is you want to do. Right company. You should still have that list of companies that you're actively maintaining, but it shouldn't be doing any radical shifts at this point. And it should give you a place to focus your thoughts on what you want to do next. Your connections, peer developers, peer management, if you're at that level, and peers that have moved on. Okay. Folks that you've worked with in the past, that you've maintained those connections with, are tremendously powerful at that level. Okay. And a great tool. Now, as we move forward here, this is a collection of tools and recommendations and things like that. So we're talking here about building things. Okay. We get this, or I see this comment all the time. Stop telling developers to make projects to get a job. Never had an employer ask me about a project I built. Now, I can say I have had employers ask me about projects that I've built. Okay. And therefore, I would never tell one to not do that. Now, do I always? Not necessarily, but this environment is radically different. Most of the developers that would be saying this were getting hired in a time when they were getting chased by developers. Okay. This building things can apply more to junior than senior. And it allows you to show off something of significance. It allows you to show proof of skill and impact. These become talking points, something that increases your confidence as you're talking because you built it, right? You worked through it. Um, the bigger the project is the more you're able to learn is something to consider here too. If I do a deep dive into something, I might create a GitHub repo that has half a dozen files in it, and that one file may only be 30 lines long. Okay. Yes, I learned something, but it's not integrated into a larger system. So it really doesn't have that level of learning. The main thing here, though, in building things is stack that deck, right? You want to stack that deck in your favor. If you're in talking to a company, tell me about some bad code you wrote and how you would write it differently now. Tell me about the time that you did this, this, or this. And if you have something you've built, you can talk to that. Okay. If a company asks you to talk about a project and you haven't done it, kind of hard to have that conversation. Okay. Now let's talk about projects in a little more detail here. When we talk about projects, I tell folks, in your repo, you need to be branching. You need to be using the wiki and document what you're doing. You need to have a project board where you're doing Jira type thing with cards and moving them across. You can use the issues in like GitHub to work like a project board. You should have a pull request markdown template. You should have a pipeline of some sort running in there, even if it's just running the unit test for validation on a pull request. Your README, flesh it out. Okay. Don't leave it as the basic Angular or React or Vue or whatever README. Get rid of that stuff and put something in there talking about what you're doing, what you're intending to do, putting screenshots in, have a checklist of things you're still doing. Okay. Your pipeline should be live. Oh, and I got pipeline in there twice. There's something I can fix. Unit tests. You want unit tests in your repo if you can get to it. Have it on the checklist because if you're still working this project and you haven't gotten that far, that's a great talking point as you come to it. Hey, have you done unit tests? Well, no, but I intend to. It's right there on the checklist. Okay. There are a couple types. You can do group projects. You can do personal passion projects. You can do exploratory projects. I usually recommend that passion project because passion shows through in the way you speak. Okay. Someone that's built a project for a family member, let's say a photography website, something like that. They're writing the best code they possibly can because they're doing it for a family member. And you can hear that when they talk about it. Now, with a project, make sure you're defining that MVP, minimum viable product. Be careful of going outside that. Get that minimum done first. Get it wrapped up and complete before you start adding features. Okay. Build around what you know. What does a good project look like? Now, check links, check spelling, check grammar. These are killers. I've had several times when I'm going to look at somebody's project and there's this link to the running version of the project, and you click it and the website's down. It doesn't exist. It's not there. The URL is gone. Whatever. It doesn't look really good, right? So be careful with that, projects. Now let's take a look at portfolio. Portfolio is one that I want you to take a look at consideration. Okay, who are we creating this for? The typical portfolio I see is built by a developer to showcase development skills. So you're writing it for other developers. But other developers aren't the ones that are going to be hiring you. Other developers are just that. They can be references, but you want to build this for hiring managers and recruiters. You need to tell them about you. Okay. So you have that hero. In that hero should be having a call to action. I'm the person you need on a team. Below that, let's have images of you as a developer at meetups doing dev work. Talk a little bit about why you do it. You want them to know you long before you get to the projects and tech used and the resume. Okay. Because they need to know you as a person. They need to know why you are the fit for their team. Okay. Make sure your links in your resume are up to date, like I said before. Okay, be careful with that one. Now, one of the things that I would point out is resume is an optional one here. Okay, if you're applying to front end and back end and full stack positions, maybe you don't put the resume there because it's hard to fit that into all three specific categories. Maybe you provide the resume upon request or something like that. Okay. Speaking of resume, let's talk about resume and ATS. Your basic resume should have a summary, should have skills, should have employment. I also realize that there are regional variances to this. There are areas that don't need a summary. Then that's okay too. Okay. Don't lie on a resume. Okay. There is an ability to do best guess. If I'm guessing that I improved the productivity, or let's say I improved or reduced the amount of bugs in a system by 30% by applying TypeScript. I mean, I have to guess to some degree on what that is because it's hard to come up with a really master number in there. Okay. If the region allows for the summary, tell them why are you the best person for the job. Okay. Skills. Take a look at the job posting. What are the minimum skills from that job posting? Okay. If they say on there that you need to be using MySQL, well, why do you have MongoDB and whatever other databases out there, right? List MySQL. Keep that skills section simple so that recruiter hiring manager sees exactly what they need to see you have the skills. Okay. Those other pieces can be down within the employment section. That's fine. I usually tell people build a master resume that's got every variant on skills, every variant on summary, every variant on employment that you can copy paste these things quickly. Okay. Simpler is better. Leave the photo off. ATS ready. Double, triple, quadruple check for broken links, bad spelling, grammar. Do you need a cover letter? Maybe, maybe or not. I usually treat the cover letter as this is your way to explain why you're transitioning, why you're changing roles, why you're going from whatever to being a developer. Okay. That's not something that's easy to put onto a resume. So do the cover letter. ATSs, okay. Track everything as you work with your resume. Make sure you're applying early because the ATS system will be tracking things by date when you applied. So earlier applications are going to be higher up on the list of folks that matched the right number of keywords or whatever it is. Okay. Make sure you optimize that resume content. And I liked what Francesco said about the goal of the recruiter is to hire you, not to reject you. Okay. Keep that in mind as you work your resume, as you work the interviews and those kind of things. Now, LinkedIn, okay, good system. People are using it. Several sections in here to talk about the banner in some way needs to say I'm in technology, reduce that cognitive load for that developer, for that hiring manager. Okay. A banner that's gray background that's never been changed doesn't say I'm in tech. A photo of a sunset doesn't say I'm in tech. Now, that photo of the sunset, you can put your name and that title somewhere on that photo, probably on the right side, that says, hey, I'm Bob Fornell. I'm a senior solutions developer. Now I've got a photo that I like that says I'm in tech. Okay. Doesn't have to be a fancy techie image. Okay. Your images need to be clean and bright, particularly the photo of you, preferably of your face, head and shoulders. Okay. Full body is tougher. Taglines, first thing recruiter sees, keep it simple. Okay. Don't say beginner, transitioning, whatever. You're a developer writing code. The about section is where you're selling yourself. And there's this concept called above the fold. Okay. And what above the fold really comes down to is back in newspaper days, it was folded in half, it was stacked. And the top half of the newspaper is what people saw. So all the big photos would be there. The headline would be there. If they used color, that's the place they would put it because that's what sold the newspaper. In web terms, that became what's on the screen when the page first loaded. Now, in terms of LinkedIn, that about has a button that shows up if you have too much content that says see more. Assume the recruiter's not going to click it. What you want that recruiter to read needs to fit above the fold without having to click that button. It's okay to have more. Just assume they're not going to read whatever's past that. Okay. You've got a featured section that you should be using. Okay. This is where you decide what posts, what resume, what projects are featured. You decide the order and how they're presented. Okay. Activity should have a post at least once a week, minimum, for the algorithm to see you and respond positively when somebody searches for you. Okay. Experience, use industry standard terms. I'm a senior solutions developer. If I go to shift roles to another company, I would change that to senior front end developer because I want them to know in industry standard terms what I did. Your skills need to be endorsed. You need to have recommendations. Recommendations can be considered a red flag if they're not there. Write a recommendation. Endorse other people's skills that you've worked with. They'll do the same for you. Okay. Don't leave the LinkedIn sections that we're talking here generic. The worst case I get is, hey, I'm having trouble finding a job, and I go look, and there's nothing there. You're not selling yourself. You're doing a disservice to yourself because somebody comes to find you and there's nothing there saying why they should look at you, why they should consider you. Okay. If you're posting, consider posting into some of the groups that you're a member of as opposed to your whole feed. My feed, I have 2,000 people connected to me, which seems like a lot, but if I post into the JavaScript group, that's 1.8 million people, much higher impact. Okay. One of the other considerations, I see the social Saturday things, and I've done that before. It's great for getting connections, but they're not meaningful connections unless you're actively getting in there and trying to have communication with those folks. They're not going to carry a lot of weight. Now, I do talk about the banner and image in a secondary piece because here I'm going to jump into Twitter here real quick. But with banner and image, I want you to focus on keeping the banner and image the same across all your social media. I talked earlier about reducing the cognitive load. When I find you on other social media and I come over to LinkedIn and I search for you, if that photo and banner are the same, I know immediately that it's you. I don't have to think about it. Okay, so keep that in mind as you work social media. So talking about X Twitter, again, banner, image, tagline. My tagline is the same on both. It keeps my life a whole lot easier. My banner image are close enough for my purposes. You could put links in the header of your LinkedIn, or sorry, in your Twitter, and you may link to LinkedIn, but make sure that works, right? The worst case is you click it and it goes to a 404 page or something like that. Can't find this. You've got a pinned article that you can do at the top of X and Twitter. That should be an important one for you. Okay, it should be some project, something to help sell you. So why X Twitter? If it's something that you haven't done before, it's that strong tech community, recruiters, hiring managers that might see you. Okay. One of the things that I like to point out to people is while on LinkedIn, you don't get a lot of credit on retweets. You're helping that other person, or reposts. You're helping that other person. On Twitter, those reposts, those retweets can actually help your visibility to some degree too. Okay. It's just something to consider. Some of the patterns to look at, I detail out of here: following recruiters, creating a recruiter list, retweeting good content, reposting that good content. Find influencers in your industry. Follow these people. Okay, see what they're talking about. See where the conferences are, the topics that they're covering. Find people with common interests, people in your area as well. Okay, and again, we'll talk about those correct links. It's one of the big ones I see. Now, talking about connections in general, LinkedIn, how to connect. Okay, this is a big one. What I typically do is I'm going to find somebody who's using LinkedIn regularly. What does that mean to me? Well, I talked earlier on LinkedIn about posting once a week or better. That's somebody that's active. If that person hasn't posted in the last 10 months, it could be upwards of 2 years before they see your connection request. Okay. Spend the time on the people that are active. Use that activity. Go into their feed. Put some substantive comments on. After a couple of those, ask. What's your ask? What is it you want? Do you want to chat with them? Do you want help finding a job? I don't know. You need to figure out what it is. But at some point, hey, can we connect and maybe chat sometime about the industry? Okay. The social Saturday LinkedIn's probably aren't carrying you much weight or value. Twitter connections, strong tech community, visibility. These are connections that you not just make. I don't care how many people are following me. It's who am I supporting? Who is supporting me? Who's commenting on my posts? Can I strengthen those connections? Okay. Strong connections involve stories. People remember the stories you tell. You remember the stories they tell. We need to be actively listening. I always point out to people when I get into chats that I take notes. You're going to hear me typing on the keyboard. That's not me doing something else generally. Sometimes it is, but most often not. I'm trying to actively listen to what they say, and I want to put that story information down because I talk to hundreds of people. It's easy to forget who I talk to. Okay. We need to validate those connections in some meaningful way. We need to help build that meaning. Okay. And I always suggest holidays. Christmas is a perfect example. You're reconnecting with family and friends. It's an amazing time to go back through your connection list and say, who haven't I talked to in a while? Let me see if I can connect with a person. Maybe we can get a chat going. Maybe I can tell them what I'm looking for, what I need, what I'm asking for. Okay. Let's talk about interviews here a little bit. And this may or may not apply to everybody here, but informal interview is one of the first ones we talk about. Okay. And I highlight that one because an informal interview is you asking them. It's not a job interview. You're asking somebody to chat with you. Think of it like an interview. You want to learn about them, what they're doing. If it fits right, you tell them about you and what they can do for you, but make it about them. Those are the ones that are going to carry the most weight for you in the long term. We have cultural fit interviews. I've seen AI resume overviews coming into place. 4 types of technical with code challenges, conversational, take home code review, project portfolio overviews on technical. Okay. There are tons of types of interviews, and we probably could do this whole session on interview types and how to handle different things in these interview types. The biggest thing is to be prepared. Okay. So when we look at the things to account for research and practice, in my mind, postings is probably the number one. Okay, and by postings, I'm talking about what is the job posting, right? What emails have you gotten on it? What's on your calendar invite? Are you walking in for a cultural interview or a technical? Because if you're preparing for a technical and it's a cultural, or even worse, you're preparing for a cultural and it's a technical, that's going to be a tough interview. Okay, double, triple check this stuff. Make sure you got it right. Read that job posting top to bottom. We have this tendency to skim it and you miss things, and those things can be in critical things. Okay. 30-second elevator pitch should be about you, and it's not what's on your resume. It's not what's on your LinkedIn. So for myself, I would be saying something like, I'm a senior solutions developer. I help employers solve problems. Many times that's with code. It's problems that they have trouble with. But I look at things like, does this team have the skill to, number one, build, and number two, maintain what it is I'm helping them build? If they don't, part of what I'm doing there is bringing them up to that next level where they can support that application because I know I'm not going to be there forever. Okay. That's my elevator pitch. You're not finding that on my resume and on my LinkedIn. Okay. When you research, look at the company website, look at the people on it, search them on LinkedIn, look at the products, look at the clients, look at the feedback, news, articles, values. Why do I want to spend time there? Well, the worst interview question to get is, hey, assume you're at our company. How would you sell us? And if you haven't looked at that company website in some detail, that can be a very difficult question. Okay. Research your interviewers, stalk these people. Legal. Okay. You should be looking at LinkedIn, any posts, any articles, anything you can find about them. The more time you spend researching that interviewer, the more comfortable you're going to feel because you feel like you know them walking in the door. Now, tech stack. I talk about taking a look at the tech stack. What's in the job posting? What is it you're looking at tech stack wise? Go through the documentation. Any tools, libraries that stack uses. So let's say React uses several different state management tools. Those are the tools. Angular uses RxJS. That's the tools. Go through the main library framework documentation and the tooling documentation. Okay. Not read through. You don't want to read everything. What you want to do is skim through it. Where are my gaps? Where's my strong understanding? If I've got a gap in there that really stands out, maybe do a deep dive in that area. Don't get yourself caught flat-footed. I always recommend something like Glassdoor, doing a research on there. I've had several people that got through with their interviews and told me later that after the interview, they went out and looked on Glassdoor for some reason, and they found out that the actual interview questions that they got were out there. It's not always going to happen, but man, what a horrible feeling that would be to find out that you could have prepared for those questions more had you taken the time to look. If it's not there, it's not there. But if it is, and you look at it after the fact, that's going to feel pretty bad. Okay. Take the time, little extra research, and helps. Final step here is plan out your questions. Any question that comes up during this research, you need to be writing down. I don't care if you find the answer, you need to write it down so that you have a list of questions to showcase your interest in their company. If I got two people applying and they've got the same technical ability, and one says, no, I don't have any questions about your company, and one says, oh, I got a couple of questions. Which one of those two do you think you're probably going to hire? Or probably the one that's showing interest in the company. Okay. Now, job search. There is a book called 2 Hour Job Search. It's on LinkedIn, fairly easy to find. But it's focused on keeping your domain of knowledge tight. Okay. A friend of mine used this for the financial industry, where he focused on 25 really small to mid-sized companies that were doing something he liked. Okay. And he was able to, with small to mid-sized, connect at a higher level, connect with people that had that capacity to say, we don't have a job open, but here's a guy we really need to have on board. They were still passionate about their organization. Okay. Another thought along the job search lines is there's a Google search pattern out there. And what you're seeing here is the site colon says, hey, search these websites, this one or this one or this one, or this one. These are job boards. These are where companies post their jobs. And then at the end of this, you get full stack developer, full stack engineer. I'm doing variants on how full stack engineer would be described. Yes, you can use ChatGPT, something like that, to come up with that list. And remote. On Google, this is going to search those boards for those titles. Okay, for the keyword remote. The really important part to this part of it is to take the Google tools after you've done the search and search for jobs that posted in the last 24 hours. Going back to applying early. Okay, just a thought on how that can be applied. All right. Now, I want to step into something that's kind of controversial, and I'm not going to say right or wrong here. Okay, cold calling. We all know cold calling. This is a rough way to go. Okay, the numbers of returns and responses for sales folks doing cold calling are really, really, really low. There are a few people that are very, very good at it. Now, what I want to talk about here is cold emailing. Okay, we're trying to contact somebody that we've never met before. This is a powerful marketing tool if used right. Okay, it can be effective in marketing your personal brand, marketing you. Okay. The challenges are you got to get them to open the email. You need a message that's compelling and personalized. Personalization is the key to this. Okay. It takes time, it takes effort. You need to know what your value proposition. It needs to be easy to read. The individual that I heard about this from entered college and over a couple of years was reaching out to other professors at other universities, was reaching out to folks that were doing studies in the industry. She was reaching out to people at companies, all cold emails, people she had never met before, but she did the research. She crafted a message that was along the lines of each one was different, but it was along the lines of, hey, I see that you're doing X, Y, and Z. I'm really excited about that. I'm in college doing this. You guys are doing this study, you're doing this research, you're doing this work. I'd really love to see how I can add to that. love to have a conversation about what you're doing and what that could mean to me down the road. This is a very connected person that as she enters the job market, whether that's entering the job market to move on to a master's or a doctorate or enter into the industry, she's opened a lot of opportunity there by taking some time and reaching out properly. She identified her ideal customer. She determined what their needs are. And she did other things in there too. It wasn't just send that one message, right? Think about it this way. You're walking down the street and you're passing somebody and you say to that person, "Good morning." What do they say back? "Good morning." And you walk past each other. Yes, you connected. It was a cold contact. You've never seen that person before and you may never see them again. Well, you want to see them again in this case of the cold calling, right? How do we boost a response rate? Well, you reconnect, you follow up. Next time I'm walking by, "Hey, good morning, how you doing? I've seen you now before. I've seen you a couple times. I saw you yesterday. Enjoying the morning." I take it to the next level. Okay. Maybe after a couple of those, maybe we should walk together sometime since we're both walking this path. We're just going different directions. Be nice to have some company, somebody to chat with, right? So reaching out, maybe even with a different communication channel. If you're trying LinkedIn, try an email. If you're trying email, try LinkedIn. You've got to balance pushy and persistent. Okay. Which can be tough, but it can be done. I think cold emailing has a place, and like any of the other tools and things that I'm talking about here, the cold emailing can work well if you take the time and put the effort in to do it right. Okay. Now, talking about networking, I love this um, Dilbert. I think this one really stands out and talks about networking in an interesting way. Um, Weird and creepy, absolutely. So let's move on and talk about networking a little bit in general here. Um, so networking is about relationships. It's about building, having thoughtful conversations. It's about the mutual respect between the people involved. Mutual benefit and respect. Sorry, but we need to network in the right place. Okay, your location that you're networking, and where I first heard about this was thinking about networking as in terms of what we do when we date. Okay, and I think back to my dating days and talk about not doing anything for my network. I really was. I mean, I dated a lot, but I wasn't very good at it. So if we think about dating, your first thought on the pool of people that you could date. Going to a bar is a great place because there's lots of people that are single, that are out, that are partying, that are doing whatever it is that they're doing, but they're rarely there to make that deep long-term connection. Okay. Networking in the right place means that you need to take where you're most comfortable at, because that's where you're going to find someone that you're going to be the most comfortable with. In my case, that was going back to college and time with my fraternity, which is where I actually found and connected with my wife. Now, I am religious. I do go to church, but I don't consider myself strongly religious. So I could have made a connection through the church, but I don't know that that's the most comfortable place for me. I don't know that Jennifer and I would have met there. Networking in the right place, finding that right place to reach out to find those professional connections that you're looking for. Okay. Connection or conferences are a great place to do networking, but you got to make sure you're going to the right type of conference. There are some conferences end up being more, we're selling this product. And you need conferences that are tech focused, that are hiring focused, and that kind of thing. Okay, so when we talk conversations, um, you need to be comfortable with small talk, pleasantries, elevator pitches, and that kind of stuff. But you need to build to that in-depth discussion about your industry, about your challenges, about your goals. And it's easiest to do that when you're pulling that, when you're asking the other person about their knowledge of the industry, their challenges, their goals. Okay, it helps to build that connection. Um, The one of the biggest things in my mind when I look at networking is making sure that there are no hidden agendas. Okay. You're networking for the sake of building a relationship. Yes, if you're job hunting, that's one thing, but if you're just building the network to have a strong network for your career, you know, that doesn't have to carry an extra strings or weights. It's you getting to know another human being. Okay. So here's an interesting one. If I had to, okay, if I had to get a job as quickly as possible, some of the things I would be looking about at and considering is getting a job through referrals seems to work well, but you got to know who your top people are in your list. You have to know who your top companies are that you want to reach out to. You have to have a strong network so you can reach out to those people and have them actively promote you. Be willing to actively step in on your behalf. If you have a weak network, if you don't know who your top people are, a referral is going to be tough to get. Okay. Domain search, the domain search that I talked about, using Google to search. You have to be able to target based on your experience to some degree, right? This domain search is only as good as the search you put in. Okay, cold email, targeting and stalking. As I talked about when we talked about the cold calling and the cold connections, it's only as good as the time or effort you put in. And I leave on here the traditional finding a job and applying. This still can be a valid route if you're applying at the right places, at the right companies, at the right time when they have that need. But it takes time and effort to do correctly. Okay. You've really got to customize that resume so that you're in the ATS well. You got to get it in early enough, which means you've got to have your resume ready to copy paste quickly and get it through. All of these have strengths and weaknesses. All of these take work, research, and persistence to do. A quick job search these days could be a couple of months. I know folks that are in the 2, 3 year range. Okay. You have to, as I said earlier, you have to go the route that's best for you and your circumstances. Not all of these are going to be things that you do. All right. Remember, we're talking early career, mid career, late career. We're talking coming into the industry. We're talking in the industry, possibly wanting to move. We're talking late, potentially wanting to do a shift into some new subset of what you had done before. Everybody's got a different path, different requirements. And at the same time, all of these are tools to be used that you can take or leave. You've got to do what you're comfortable with. Okay. So at the end here, we don't have a whole lot of people on, so there probably won't be a lot of questions. Okay. This is a collection of thoughts and ideas. Okay. You have to use what's right for you. Some summary points. LinkedIn, give yourself a fighting chance. Put the content in there to make you not only visible, but when somebody comes to see you, they can see that you are the right person. If there's no content there, they've got nothing to gauge a decision on. Make sure you have a plan that you're strategizing where your strengths are. You're using the tools appropriately. Sell yourself. Why are you the best fit for the job? I watch senior people that know the technology inside and out that don't get the job. But somebody that's been in the industry 4 years, 5 years gets the job because they sell what they can do and their excitement about what the company is doing well. I'm the right person for the position you have because only you can fill in that answer. And you need to show your curiosity, ask those questions. I never did this. Shot myself in the foot. I don't know how many times. In fact, I know for a fact I did. When I was at Select Sires, I was told 3 years after I got the job. No, I got the job the second time around. 3 years after I got the job, I was told two of us the first time had equal skills. They had 6 people on the panel. 3 wanted him, 3 wanted me. They flipped a coin to decide who got the job. I lost. I didn't ask any questions because I had done my research. I knew about their company. I was excited about their company, but I didn't show it. Could I have gotten that job the first time and started a year earlier? I'll never know. And the last thing I want to point out here is you've got to be authentic. You've got to be you. Okay? Don't try and present yourself differently because you think they want something different. If that company doesn't want you, it's their loss. They need you with all the bumps, with all the bruises, with all the scars, because you've got those. Okay. And the right company, if you've done your research correctly, the right company will be there and will want you and will welcome you. Okay. All of these apply, whether you're looking for work, you're transitioning for work. If you're at retirement and all you're going to do is retire, not much I can do for you there other than, I don't know, maybe we have a side conversation later on about, where to vacation and that kind of thing. And I don't know how much I'll help there. Okay. So, active career management. There's a lot you can do to be active and prepared and ready. A lot that you can do to be better positioned for unexpected events. All right. Thank you for your time.